depends on if the portfolio is up for the day or not. Starbucks is doing good, but
by the way, I'm not at 10%. That's like what I'd be comfortable letting it build up to. I'm probably closer to 6 or 7, depending on, because I've had some stuff run up recently, like Amazon and MPW have both increased a lot in the last couple months, while High Tide has fallen. So my percentage has actually dropped a little bit because of that.
Yeah. There's nothing stopping me from buying more, though. I've only gotten more convicted, and I'd probably, I don't know, my average is like, I started the position at 202, then I added more at like 180. So I think probably if we hit like 190 or 180 again, I'd start dabbling again.
But
it's easy because you don't got to put a lot into it.
Definitely want to take advantage of the dip and get some more in, though.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm always thirsty for more.
Yeah.
Brian, could you pull up the 3 charts? I know you want to wrap up soon, but I wanted to talk about margins for a couple minutes, because because
the reason we know how to margin,
we just saw Q3. Yeah, pull up the top chart if you could like zoom in on that or make it bigger. We just saw Q3 results like 2 weeks ago. Q4 is when this company does write downs, right? And I'm not expecting a write down, but if one is going to hit, it will happen next quarter, right? It'll happen in the Q4 report. So 2 Q4s ago, they wrote down the value of all their CBD assets, right? It turns out CBD was a highly discretionary good, and when inflation hit the consumers, they decided that they just plain didn't need to buy as much of it. And so the revenue and the margins for the CBD industry as a whole, not just this company, the entire industry, they all collapsed. Demand collapsed, margins collapsed, bam. All of a sudden, CBD companies went from highly profitable, high-margin businesses to trading in the gutter, worth almost nothing, not profitable. Many of them went out of business. Many of them are losing money. Thankfully, they're just a small component of this company, right? So they wrote down the value of the CBD industry of the 3 CBD companies, right? Last Q4, they wrote down the value of their websites because, similar to what happened to CBD, only far less pronounced, and it took them far more time to play out. Demand for the glassware through the websites dropped off. And so at the end of 2023, they were like, hey, we have to revalue the value of these assets. They're not worth as much because they don't generate as much revenue as they used to, because demand across the entire industry is down. So whatever. But for me, I just want to warn everybody, if a write down is going to happen, it will happen next quarter in Q4, right? And I don't see any, you could go into their reports where they break down component by component, each like segment of the business, how well it's doing in like the last annual report. I don't have any indication that any one segment is doing any better or worse than any of the others right now. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm not paying enough attention, but that's just what I've been seeing is basically more of the same. So I don't really expect another write down. I also, when the consumer like confidence goes higher and they go back to discretionary spending, demand for these products will go back up, right? Demand for the glassware will go back up. Demand for the CBD will go back up, right? This company is supposed to be suffering right now. 2 of their segments are suffering. The company as a whole is still doing just fine. So before we move on to the second one, I want you to look at gross margins, right? We can see the tail end of when they instituted the discount model, their gross margins collapsed. It was in the low 30s, then it fell into the high 20s, and then it's been hovering between 26 and 28 for the last like 2 years, something like that. So anytime it goes up to 28, people celebrate, and then it drops back down to 27, and the bears are like, oh, your margins are collapsing. And all I see is like, well, it's just bouncing around between 26 and 28. So as long as it doesn't fall below 26, I'm not going to panic. And as long as it doesn't go above like 28 and a half or whatever, I'm not going to declare victory.